And so we may have different religions, different languages, different accents, maybe even different hues of skin. But at the end of the day, we are all Nigerians, and our differences, our ethnicity, should unite us rather than divide us. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and you know, I never do this alone. It'll be incomplete without Jeffrey and Coyote. Hi, guys.
What happens to the applause and the rest? Woo!
Maybe the effects, by the way. There's an effect they're supposed to play on the song, under
Right.
under
Okay.
that very great.
Welcome to the show.
Under that great presentation, or that beginning, you know. But on that United note, welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
And I'm Coyote Okikele. We're live for you in Lagos. And the hue, we just talked about the different skin tones.
You know, that was not the exact quote. The exact quote actually talks about different
yes, but I picked
colors of skin.
I picked the one
but we
I
all
wanted to.
belong to the human race, and it's ascribed
The
to
hue
Kofi
reminds me
Annan.
of using editing suite. So you know, color balance or balance color or grade colors.
Yeah.
So it's more of a graphic term.
Exactly.
When it comes to graphics and all of
But
that.
absolutely, you know, women know this better.
Yeah.
Especially when you want to pick makeup.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
color 1, color 2. I thought we were the same color. They said, no, you don't want
No.
to use a wrong
No.
foundation.
Yeah.
The wrong foundation, right.
Yeah,
You go to the market, yeah, and you
don't
buy
know
those
colours.
things for your wife.
Men don't know colours.
But
Is that
really,
black or white?
Yeah, we just know solid colors. If it's not black, if it's not red, if it's not blue, if it's not yellow
Or purple.
purple, those apparent colors that you don't need any jury to decide on what. But women, in the red, there are 25,000 shades
Tomato
of red.
Atarodo red.
I don't know.
you can't.
I can't keep up.
You can't beat these guys when you want to collect extra money for them so that you can buy just a couple of extra foundations to last another 3 months.
The women-
Because they go to the market themselves.
So,
You know,
turquoise, is it turquoise? And then burnt. I said, where did burnt get into colors, by the way?
Just keep
They
things
just,
simple.
is it that women, you guys create these colors, or these are the real colors?
Jeffrey, let's leave women for now.
No, they're on the table
quote
today.
was purpose-fitted for Nigeria for good reason. It's
Okay.
actually originally ascribed to former UN Secretary General Chief Kofi Annan. So that's why it was adapted to fit Nigeria. But the essence of it this morning is such that we can reflect on our diversity and where we are currently. You know, during elections, our fault lines are most enhanced. You know, when politicians, more often than not, you know, take advantage of those differences, and then we hear, oh, it's the turn of this particular region of the state to go for governorship. Oh, the people of the uplands have not occupied the seat of power for a very long time. But look at inflation figures today. 33.4% or thereabout. Look at food inflation hovering around 40.35%. Look at our foreign reserves. The last time it was above $40 billion was in 2013. You can look at our GDP. Look at the pump price of petrol. Look at cylinder. The other day we were joking about how we're unable to cook beans in these times. And somebody said, go get a pressure cooker if you want to cook beans and not have palpitations because of your cylinder. So there is no Yoruba man on your cylinder. There is no Igbo man on the amounts that you spend on breakfast. You know, ethnicity, culture, they're very, very powerful. That sense of identity of belonging to a particular place. But at the end of the day, these challenges know no differences. So something for us to reflect on this morning.
Absolutely, I totally agree. When you talk of cost of things, on a lighter note, where we're moving, I never knew curtains were that expensive. When my wife went to buy the curtains and she sent me the bill, I almost was like, don't buy it. Like, stay within the cap of the budget we proposed. It was like double. I was watching Fisayo, our guy from Tech. He was in his house tour. And twice he said, these curtains are expensive. I never knew curtains are that expensive.
They are.
With these inflation numbers we are seeing, I don't know where it is going to be right now. So I totally agree with you. Politicians know how to walk the people for their own advantage. And I hope that a day will come in our country when everybody will realize that these guys, for the most part, it's just about themselves and their interests. So don't kill yourself for nobody. Eventually you see them you know, clinking glasses, enjoying themselves, having fun, and say it was all politics. I heard some of the most debasing, derogatory, inhumane things during the last election. And the elections are over, everybody said, let's move on, it was just for election. Really? People emotionally invested in that exercise. People died in that exercise. And you come out on the other side and say, it was just politics. We can't joke with people's lives. It's a line you cannot cross.
Come on, guys, it's a very deep one, really, and you're getting me all emotional this morning, but there's a simple hack I use. I don't see it as our fault lines, I see it as our strength lines, really. So if you're from a different ethnicity, religion, or whatever, I just see it as something to explore, something new to explore, not, oh, yeah, you don't look like me, so move away. No, I just want to explore. I don't know about you, but I see it as an adventure. So I don't say fault lines anymore. I say strength lines, adventure lines. I mean, don't you just want to learn about the other person's culture, the religion, how it works? Maybe it's the curious journalist in me, but let that be our watchword this morning. No more fault lines, guys. They are our strength lines. But let's unbox what we have for you on the show this morning.
Speaking of unboxing, we're starting this morning with the economy. Nigeria's headline inflation has peaked, reaching a 28-year high in April 2024, hitting 33.69% year-on-year and up from 33.20% in March. Another increase spurred by this current administration's removal of fuel subsidy, with Nigeria's headline inflation pegged at 22.41%. That was just a year ago, and the price of petrol pegged at 148 naira per litre in May 2023. It appears that these economic indicators are in a race for heights, albeit negatively. So still, we won't stop asking how to rein in on what some experts may term stagflation.
Well, that's not all. It's been described as the most dramatic political imbroglio playing out under 1 year. And it's an apt description under the circumstance as a fresh wave of resignations has hit the Fubara-led River State administration. That's its cabinet. 5 of them out of the cabinet was the implication of the resignation of the 5 pro-Wike commissioners for the political future of River State.
And on the flip side, this morning, we touch on a music genre that would most likely keep you on your feet for hours, but that's not all, but also get you dashing out money. Oh, yes. It's this genre, we seek to understand how your favorite regular live band performance at parties acquire the dexterity which they deploy to keep you on your feet with their repertoire of timeless tunes. And while at it, some still find space for more creativity, even infusing hip-hop and rap lines, like the one deployed by our precious guest. Most Precious Adedonyi joins us, ladies and gentlemen, on the show this morning.
Quite a bumper package,
Oh, yeah.
yes. My expression is back.
To that.
Indeed, we have all of that for you to spice up your day and get you motivated and ready to face the challenges of the day without being intimidated by the current realities. So join us in the next 1 hour, 30 minutes or so as we begin to unpack what we have for you. But starting now, you can start texting, writing to us on our WhatsApp handle that we've extended to you as a hand of fellowship, as Kayode would say. Also, don't forget, you can also post to us on X, Facebook, Instagram. We have a brand new social media handle. Well, it's no longer brand new. It's been there for about 2 to 3 months now, yes. If you're not following us, start following us already. Send your videos as well to our WhatsApp handle and your questions. So after this time out, we'll return with the top stories for the day. Stay with the Morning Brief. Welcome back. And as we start off, just like Nigeria's inflation figure, it seems the former CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, can hardly catch a breather when it comes to allegations of financial impropriety leveled against him. This time, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, on Wednesday arraigned him for printing 648 million naira at the cost of 18.9 billion naira without the approval of former President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. Emefiele was arraigned before Justice Marian Aneni of the Federal Capital Territory High Court on a 4-count charge to which he pleaded not guilty. Justice Aneni subsequently granted him bail in the sum of 300 million naira with 2 sureties and like sum who must be residents of Nigeria and owners of property in Maitama District, Abuja.
Bail conditions are discretionary to the court, and it is under the inherent powers of the court. A court must ensure that it gives conditions that will compel the accused person to attend the court proceedings to answer his charge. So, well, you see that the court have taken judicial notice of other proceedings that are pending in other courts, and the charges too. So, I think we are good.
Away from the courts, Nigeria has recorded another milestone in its quest to fully tap into its gas potential with the coming on stream of 3 critical gas infrastructure projects. Speaking virtually while inaugurating the 3 projects which took place at the AGPC gas plant in Imo State, the president says the project will significantly raise the country's gas supply and boost economic growth.
This event is highly significant in our country and demonstrates the administration's determination to accelerate the development of critical gas infrastructure geared at demonstrably enhancing the supply of energy to boost the industrial growth and create employment opportunity and further prosperity for our people. The project also fully in line with the Decade of Gas initiative and our quest to create value from nation's abundant gas assets while eliminating gas flaring and celebrating industrialization. It is pleasing that approximately 500 million standard cubic feet of gas in aggregate will be supplied to the domestic market from these 2 gas processing plants, representing over 25% incremental growth in our domestic gas supply. In practical terms, this is more gas to power the sector, more gas to industry, and more gas to critical segments of our economy. It is my sincere hope that the theme of this commissioning, from gas to prosperity, renew hope, shall be adopted by all gas sector participants and will be investors as a clarion call to ramp up efforts to accelerate investment and development of projects in gas sector on a win-win basis.
Well, I know the question on your mind, will it increase power supply sufficiently and will it force down the price of goods and services upon the promise of increased supply to industries? Well, we'll find out in the coming days. To other stories, reactions are trailing, well, still on the commission of the gas plants. Reactions are trailing the commissioning of the plants, with the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, promising that the National Assembly will continue to strengthen legislation towards doing business in Nigeria. And for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Abbas Tajuddin, the projects prove that public-private partnership is the way to go for Nigeria. They were speaking after witnessing the inauguration at the State House, Abuja.
We will continue to strengthen our laws and make sure that the ease of doing business is prevailed, and also that investors are attracted to Nigeria, because without the enabling acts, investors to find it difficult to bring in their money. And money is very shy. It does not go to areas of conflict. So we put the necessary laws in place to give confidence and boost investment in the country.
A lot of people will benefit from this initiative. But more importantly, we should take a lesson from what has happened today, that the power of public-private partnership is the way forward for Nigeria. This is a project which ordinarily should have taken 2 years or more to complete. But because of the fusion of the private sector and the public, you can see that this has taken only 11 months to actualize.
Meanwhile, Governor Hope Uzodimma, who also witnessed the commissioning, says the projects will positively impact the host community, Imo State, and as a whole.
I'm very delighted, and I want to thank Mr. President for choosing to locate this project in Imo State. And you will agree with me that this project is a multi-billion-dollar project that is meant to bring prosperity, create jobs for our teeming young men and women, reduce the level of unemployment, and make life more comfortable. What is more important is that the whole idea about green energy and clean energy starts from gas. So this project, with these attendant benefits to not only the host communities, to the state, and indeed Nigeria, is a welcome idea. It will create jobs. It will empower the people. It will generate revenue. It will increase the lifespan of our people. More importantly, it will reduce, if not to eliminate, this idea of gas flaring in our environment. So we can now see how the gas that was being flared is now being converted to wealth. So this is the ingenuity and the thinking of a great leader in the person of the president.
To other stories now, the Bishop of Sokoto Catholic Diocese and founder of the Kuka Center, Right Reverend Father Matthew Kuka, says 1 year is inadequate to pass judgment on President Bola Tinubu's government. He, however, notes that the government needs to communicate to Nigerians about when it will fix the current socio-economic challenges in the country. Bishop Kuka stated this in an interview with State House correspondents shortly after meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Villa Abuja to discuss an upcoming event organized by the Kuka Center. And to Rivers State now, a gale of resignations has again hit the state government as 5 more commissioners loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike, have quit Governor Simlai Fubara's cabinet. Those who resigned are the Commissioners for Education, Chinedu Mom, Housing, Gift Wolu, Transport, Jacobson Mbina, Social Welfare and Rehabilitation, Inime Aguma, and Environment, Austin Benchoma. The former commissioners cited toxic working environment, lack of trust, and room for progressional development as reasons for their resignations. The commissioners were among those who resigned from the governor's cabinet in December 2023 in the wake of the political crisis, but were readmitted into Fubara's cabinet following President Bola Tinubu's intervention. And just after that, the candidate of the Social Democratic Party in last year's governorship election in Rivers State, Mr. Magnus Abe, has pledged to work with the FCT Minister, Mr. Nyesom Wike, and the Rivers APC caretaker chairman, Mr. Tony Okocha. Senator Abe, who represented Rivers Southeast in the upper chamber, said this in Port Harcourt during a stakeholders meeting with members of his support group and loyalists. Away from politics now, organized labor has pulled out of the ongoing negotiation aimed at producing a new national minimum wage for the country. The Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, which had proposed 615,000 naira minimum wage, rejected 48,000 naira proposal made by the federal government. The NLC president, Mr. Joe Ajero, who briefed journalists on the union's decision to pull out of the talks, accused the federal government of not taking the issue seriously. And we return to the FCT. to the National Assembly to be precise, where the Senate is asking the president to kickstart advocacy for full autonomy of local governments in the country. The upper chamber wants President Bola Tinubu to convene a national dialogue involving governors, state legislators, local government officials, civil society organizations, and community leaders to discuss the roadmap towards achieving full local government autonomy. And outside our shores, Slovakia's deputy prime minister has told the international media that he believes Prime Minister Robert Fico will survive and that he is no longer in a life-threatening situation. Thomas Taraba also criticized the opposition parties, accusing them of using false narratives and painting Fico as like almost a monster, comments which he said did not belong in a democracy. He expressed both shock and relief at the development, saying, fortunately, as far as he knows, the operation, that's the surgery on the Prime Minister, went well, and in the end, he will survive. Providing further details, Mr. Taraba said one bullet went through the PM's stomach and the second one hit the joint, and immediately afterwards, he was transported to the hospital and then to the operating room. In sports, President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Nigeria's table tennis pace setter, Mr. Aruna Quadri, on winning the International Table Tennis Federation ITTF Africa Cup title. Mr. Quadri achieved a resounding victory in the final match of the 2024 ITTF Africa Cup in Rwanda, reclaiming his title and sealing his place as Africa's table tennis champion. President Tinubu commends the table tennis star for his dogged pursuit of excellence, even in the face of gnawing obstacles, declaring that the zeal for distinction, the hardiness to succeed, and the inventiveness to solve the complex problems are the exceptional qualities that define Nigerians. Words true about the table tennis star from the president there. And congratulations to the relentless Aruna Quadri. And those are the top stories. But what are some of your thoughts to the big issues that have been developing in the last few days? Jeffrey joins me now for a review. Hello again, Jeffrey.
Thank you. And of course, Aruna Quadri, congratulations to him. He's been quite consistent. He's a fighter. At some point, it looked like it was over for him because he kept trying and getting there, getting off. But finally, he's here. So congratulations to him. At the end of the day, we're super, super proud of him for his doggedness. And we hope that we are going to have more Aruna Quadris following in our path as well. But again, there are other stories. It was a very scary situation for the Slovakia president now. We saw that picture. A lot of people were worried whether he will survive or not, but I think it's out of danger zone at the moment. But coming home, the Rivers political imbroglio, it's almost like every other day when you don't hear anything about Rivers State, like the place is too calm right now. So we've seen this gale of, let's call it another round of resignation. Some people have resigned twice. People like George Kelly Alavo, who is now the DG of the border communities. Zakio Zadango resigned twice. He was the first to resign the first time, and then he resigned when he was redeployed. And now we have, in total, about 8 of them also that have finally resigned. But we're going to look at all of that. But let's find out what you're saying right here on social media, on X exactly. Let's begin with the one that happened in the north, that worshippers injured as a man sets Kanu mosque on fire during prayers. I don't know what was responsible for this. This is quite sad. ST_speak says they should probe well. There might be an internal conflict they need to settle.
Yes, absolutely. It appears that as far as that story is concerned, there is more to it than meets the eye. But this one is quite wordy, but I'll try to summarize it. It's from Abdullahi Umar Zarma, who says the government should pay more attention to Kano State, because all contemporary security challenges are coming from Kano, even though the Hizbah and the police are trying their best, but they cannot handle the current security threat in Kano. The security agencies should go ahead of the future threats by providing a timely intervention to the situation.
Absolutely. Okoli Stephen LZ3 says, now wow, the other day was suicide in Jos that was caught Today in Kano, what is happening in Nigeria? Okay.
This one is from Madua Buchi, who says, fellow Nigerians are dying of hunger. About this one is still adding to their pains. Well, we hope that that ends there, really. We can understand your pain about so many challenges.
All right, so we understand there was a statement credited to the federal government saying tax now highest revenue source for the federation. And in response to that, Olakayode 15 at Olakayode 15 says, not a bad idea, but we feel the impact on the economy. Inflation is still at the highest ever. Okay, Bukola?
Well, we're still on the inflation topic, right?
Yeah, the tax being the highest source of revenue. I think from, let me take this one from Benga Shego 23029, saying if that's the case, the government shouldn't discourage us from paying taxes, particularly if we see the imprudent and non-utilization, I guess, of the taxes collected. We know some countries that have lower tax incomes but done better in healthcare delivery for their citizens. So nobody is against taxation. It's the fact that a lot of people don't see what these taxes are used for.
Absolutely. And this next one is from Baba K, who says, how does the federal government resolve to taxing the impoverished people and shy away from turning the country's natural resources into manufacturing ventures to boost industrialization, where production of goods and services for export becoming our mantra as a nation? Well, we hope for a clearer implementation of the tax reforms already implemented by this administration. We recall the president had said that the administration will not tax the poor, but will tax prosperity. And we've seen a committee deployed to that effect to come up with tax reforms, and that has been done. So we're looking at the implementation strategy, so to speak, and the results that will come out of that
Well,
process.
At the end of the day, the big question is, when you collect all of these taxes, do we see it reflects on the economy, especially on the lives of the people, in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of quality of life? Look at what's happening between the federal government and Labour. Labour feel disrespected. I'm proposing 615,000. You're giving me 47,000. And they've given the federal government to the end of the month to make up their mind to come up with a better proposal. Else, perhaps we may see another protest or round of industrial action.
And really, how does that tie into the new inflation figures that we're seeing? Is it adequate to cater to the needs? And how do we even, rein in on possible inflation if the federal government agrees to, maybe finds a middle ground between what Labour is proposing and what they're proposing? So we're going to have that conversation right after this time out. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We're starting off with a big one. It concerns the money in your pocket, what you buy in the market, how your salary measures up with your cost of living. The MBS recently released latest inflation figures for the month of April. We've not even gotten into what's happening in May just yet, but let's unpack what is going on right now. We're joined on the program by Professor of Economics, Allegheny College, Pennsylvania, USA, Professor Stephen Onyewu joins us live on the show this morning to walk through these figures. Good morning, Prof. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you very much, Ayode. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Well, Prof,
how are you doing?
Well, we're still trying to grapple with these figures because this government has a target which it's set. And we'll get into that target. But I'd like you to speak to us about the basics. What's making our inflation figures defy the global trend? So it seems like the global economy is going in one way and our inflation figures going in the opposite direction. We've seen inflation figures tapering across the world, but it's not the same for us in Nigeria. So Why is Nigeria's case peculiar? Let's start off with that, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's start with some context here. You're absolutely right that global inflation has been easing from the peaks that it reached during the pandemic. So we look across the world, we see evidence that prices have been falling. In fact, the IMF just came out with some data that show that inflation fell from 8.7% in 2022 to 5.7% in 2024. And it is expected to keep falling. The world food price also declined by about 25% within the past year. But unfortunately, here in Nigeria, food price has gone up by 40%. So absolutely, this is a very troubling situation for us here in Nigeria. That whereas inflation has been declining globally, regionally, you look at all the major regions, you will see that the trend is downwards. And as you said also, you will see that the headline inflation in Nigeria has gone up from 33.2% in March to 33.6% this April. And also, if you look at it from year-on-year basis, you'll see that it increased from 24.6% in 2023 now to 33.69%. So that is really very, very troubling. Now you ask, so why is inflation rising in Nigeria, whereas it has been falling in other parts of the world? Well, one reason is that the Central Bank of Nigeria has been using the wrong instrument to fight inflation. Let me just put this in perspective. You see that across the world, countries have been raising interest rates in order to fight inflation. Nigeria has followed suit. But the question is that an appropriate tool to fight inflation in Nigeria? Why are these other countries raising interest rates to fight inflation? Well, the reason is that during the global financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, in order to stimulate the economies, America, the Eurozone, all adopted what is known as quantitative easing. So quantitative easing is a monetary policy whereby governments or central banks buy securities from the public and in the process increase the money supply. And so by increasing the money supply, interest rates are driven down. So quantitative easing in the US, Europe, and in advanced countries led to historically low interest rates. In fact, so low that they were close to zero. And that continued for almost a decade. And then in the US, for instance, in 2020, there was also another round of quantitative easing. But then that policy overheated the economies of advanced countries. And then COVID came with supply chain disruptions combined with quantitative easing, so prices went through the roof. Now, after COVID, advanced countries have been fighting inflation by raising interest rates appropriately. And that explains why their inflation rates are declining. Now, I want to quote something that a renowned Nobel Prize economist said in 1963, Milton Friedman. He was famous to have said that inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. In other words, that inflation is usually caused by monetary authorities increasing money supply to the extent that you have too much credit. Now, in the case of Nigeria, that is not the case. Actually, Milton Friedman would be wrong to characterize Nigerian inflation as a monetary phenomenon. Inflation in Nigeria is more of a structural problem than a monetary problem. It's structural in the sense that it is caused by supply-side challenges, supply-side constraints. And you must have read some of these constraints severally in the media. They include security challenges in the food-producing regions of Nigeria. They include climate change, which has caused many farmers to be displaced and are now living in IDPs, internally displaced persons locations. It's also caused by rising transportation costs as a result of the removal of fuel subsidies and also the depreciation of the naira, which has increased the cost of importing food. So these are all structural problems that you don't address. You can't address by raising interest rates. However, that's how the Central Bank of Nigeria has been fighting inflation, following the cue of advanced countries. But it's a wrong approach. Inflation in Nigeria.
So we get your drift. You say it's a wrong approach, and the causative factors of inflation for Western countries and Nigeria are different. But you also say that they successfully tackled inflation in their own countries because they deployed what you call quantitative easing. But back here, I wonder if you're suggesting that that approach should also be deployed to tackle Nigeria's inflation such that there can be results. But back home, some legislators have identified the deployment of ways and means as being what is responsible for Nigeria's inflation, which is tantamount to excess money supply in the economy due to what the consensus is printing of naira rather than creating value. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, okay, that's right. Yeah, the ways and means brouhaha is a problem in the sense that it puts money in the hands of people who did not invest the money in productive sectors of the economy, spend the money on consumptions, and dump that into our foreign exchange markets and contributed to the depreciation of the naira. But then, how do you use rising interest rates to address that? That's the question. So even if you assume that ways and means was a problem, how would raising interest rates solve that? Let me give you an example here. Countries that raise interest rates because of excessive credit. Because interest rates are so low that people go on borrowing spree. They are buying houses because mortgage rates are low. They are buying cars because car payments are very, very manageable. They are taking student loans because repayment conditions are very favorable. So you overheat the economy that way as a result of low interest rates. But let me give you some numbers here. Do you know that credit to the private sector in Nigeria is only 12% of GDP? And of that amount, only 10% of private sector credit goes into consumer credit. So the problem is not that people are borrowing too much and then they are spending excessively and overheating the economy. That's not the problem. So you use interest rate as a tool where you have excessive credit and excessive consumer spending. and also excessive investment spending by firms. But that's not the case in Nigeria. So why use that instrument? The problem in Nigeria is the supply side. Okay. Now, talking about the demand side, go and talk to Nigerians. How many Nigerians can boast of having a few thousand naira in their pockets to spend? Nigerians are scrambling for cash. They don't have cash. So how would that fuel inflation? And why would you use interest rates when the demand for goods and services is shallow in Nigeria? And that's why I keep saying that it's a wrong tool. The fact that other countries are using it does not mean that Nigeria should also do so. And that's why inflation keeps going up. In fact, I warned back in 2022, in May 2022, when we began this journey towards inexorable rise in interest rates. I raised an alarm. I say, hey, this is the wrong approach. And now, if you look at the trajectory of inflation since May 2022, you'll see that it has been on an upward trend.
If I may butt in, my apologies if I may butt in, because now we need to now start talking solutions. I know that in the Eurozone, based on the ECB numbers, we're seeing inflation numbers getting to that target. Their target is 2%. When you take the likes of maybe Romania and the outliers like Turkey, whose numbers are quite high. Romania is about 7% at about January or so. Most of them are around 5, 3, 2, and even some are just going way down, including the UK, and it goes to Americas. You see similar numbers because we can see how interest rate is helping to curb the taper down inflation. And you said we're using the wrong approach, meaning that our diagnosis of possible cost push may be a wrong one. So how should we work now to begin to bring down this number? Although the rate appears to be slowing down, but the numbers are increasing.
Yeah, well, so there are two things we could do. As you know, food inflation forms a preponderance of the inflation we have been witnessing. So it's mainly caused by rising increases in food prices. So the question becomes, how do we slow that down? How do we slow down food inflation? And there are two things we could do. One is short term, the other one long term. The short term is that we can begin to tinker with some of the supply side factors that are causing supply shortfall. Things like restoring security in food producing areas, getting displaced persons to go back home, to go back to farms. And simple things like that. We can use that to now increase food production. The other thing we can do too in the short term is to help farmers to learn how to adapt to climate change. So many of our farmers are oblivious of the tools and mechanisms for adapting to climate change. So we can begin to raise their capacities to adjust to climate change. The other thing too we can do is with regard to the transportation costs that are just crushing not only farmers but low-income people in Nigeria. We can do something about that. We can subsidize transportation by investing in mass transportation, like other countries have done, like India. India's agricultural production has received a big boost because of India's heavy investment in public transportation. So we can do that. So these are short-term measures. Another short-term measure is, look at our youths. Are they farming? They're running away from farming. So let's make farming attractive to these young people. Now, I looked at the statistics. I found that back in 2002, the growth of agricultural value added agricultural output was growing at about 55.6%.
Right.
In 2022, it was growing by 1.9%. Why? Because people are leaving farming. Farmers are aging. You know, farming is a physically challenging occupation.
Right.
And now we're having our farmers aging, so we need to bring young people back. So those are short-term measures. But more importantly, we need a long-term strategy. Until we have made agriculture our economic and foreign policy priority, we are still going to be back to square one.
Well, Prof.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, you can make that point. I just wanted to add something to the mix, but you can make the final point you wanted to make. Okay, let me just add.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Let me make a very final point.
Right.
Very final point.
Right.
Do you know that in the 1950s, India was pejoratively characterized as the begging bowl nation? Their food crisis was so severe, more severe than Nigeria. But then their prime minister at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru, in the 1960s, declared agriculture as India's top economic and foreign policy priority. And then India pursued that, invested heavily in rural infrastructure, in mechanization, in land reforms that gave farmers access to land, irrigation system, rural infrastructure, massive investment in public transportation. The results go to India today. In fact, India's problem is that they are overproducing food. The government is even so scared that food prices may fall so low that farmers will be discouraged from farming.
Well,
so that's how you do it in the long run. We need to take a stand and say, we want to turn around our agricultural sector.
Well, interesting one there, Prof. But I'd like to add two things to the mix. I said one earlier, but let me add two to it. One, this government's target is 21.4% inflation. I wonder if you think that is still achievable at the rate we're going. On the flip side is, incidentally, yesterday when the new figures came out, Labour and the governments were negotiating for minimum wage, a new minimum wage. Labour had asked for 615,000, which of course a lot of people had said. Even Labour had said, well, we know that it won't come to that, but let us know what you're offering. Now the government has offered, they've offered 48,000 naira. That's less than a 50% increase. Labour sort of got angry, said they're no more part of the talks. So, I mean, how do you factor this into the government's target where we're at right now? Is 48%, 48,000 fair for you as an economist? And what are the possible effects of a new minimum wage?
Well, let me just clarify one thing that people think about the minimum wage. Some people think that the minimum wage destroys economies. That's incorrect. There were two prominent economists from Princeton University, David Card and Alan Kruger, who published a very influential research in 1994 about the minimum wage. Before then, people used to be scared about the minimum wage. Now, you raise the minimum wage, you destroy economies, you destroy jobs, and so on and so forth. You have an Armageddon. But they found that actually raising the minimum wage had no negative effect on the economy, especially on employment. I don't want to go into the details of that study, but they compared Eastern Pennsylvania that did not raise the minimum wage with New Jersey that raised the minimum wage. They actually found that employment in New Jersey that raised the minimum wage by 18% actually went up. So the minimum wage is a win-win for labor and corporations. It boosts morale, it empowers workers, it reduces a sense of relative deprivation, whereby people think, wow, we are working so hard and we are paid a starvation wage. Come on, 30,000 naira in Nigeria is a joke. It's a complete joke. You can't even go grocery shopping. If a family of 4 cannot go grocery shopping for 1 week with 30,000 naira.
So, Prof, does that mean that 48,000 naira is comedy as well?
Oh, God. That is even adding salt to injury. That is ridiculous. Saying 48,000 naira is the minimum wage. It's just, I mean, I'm just struggling for how to characterize that. It's ridiculous, completely ridiculous. I once did a back of the envelope calculation of how much a family of 4 would need to at least afford food. Just the basic food, they're just the basic. I came up with about 100,000 naira. 100,000 naira, just food. So just food, I didn't factor in health, education, transportation, and all that. Just food alone, 100,000 naira. Just living, basically buying just gari, beans, palm oil, and maybe some crayfish, and so on and so forth. So where would 48,000 naira lead you to? Yeah, so it's just going to put more people into poverty. And then if you consider multidimensional poverty, which is when you take account not only of income, but access to health, to education, to electricity, to sanitation, then you are not even close to 100,000. By the way, the minimum wage in 1981, when it was first introduced, was 125 naira at that time. And the naira was exchanging for 0.61 US dollars. 1 naira equals 0.61 US dollars. So when you convert that, you see that in today's naira, you're talking about almost 500,000 naira that somebody should be earning. That should be the minimum wage. Nothing less than about 500,000 naira.
Yes, Prof, we get your point about depreciation in value over the years, but let me follow up with the first part of Kadi's question, which is the possibility of this administration's projection to bring down inflation to 21%. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, for the IMF, their own projection is that inflation by the end of the year will come down to 24%. But that's projected to come down with tightening of monetary policy. Help us understand the thinking of the International Monetary Fund, particularly with regards to what we've seen so far with monetary policy tightening, with regards to in relationship with inflation figures.
Well, if you believe in miracles, I don't know whether you believe in miracles. If you do, then maybe that's possible. Unfortunately, the economic fundamentals suggest otherwise, that there is no way you can bring inflation from where it is today at 33.6% this year to 24%. So what lever are you going to use to accomplish that? Is that raising interest rates? We've seen that raising interest rates since May 2022 has not reduced the inflation rate. If anything, inflation rate has been rising. So I don't see what lever the CBN governor or whoever is going to use to reduce the inflation rate. I haven't seen that yet. So to do that, you just have, it's not possible. In the long run, maybe, especially if you begin to address the supply side constraints that are driving inflation in Nigeria. But just by ratcheting the interest rate and hoping that you get it down to 24% or whatever, I don't see that happening. So they have to change their strategy if they want inflation to go down. By the way, there is another thing that people need to understand about inflation. In economic parlance, we say that inflation or prices are sticky downwards. Prices are sticky downwards. That is, when prices go up, they almost always don't come back rapidly. It takes a while for them to come down. All right, so that's number one factor. There is also a lag in inflation targeting. So policies you put in place today to reduce inflation, you may not see that policy work until about 2 or 3 years down the line.
All right,
so it takes time for inflation to work itself through. So can you imagine that advanced countries have been using interest rates to target inflation?
All right, Prof, if I'm important, my apologies, we're running out of time. So as we begin to wind down, I'm wondering, I do not want to believe that economists at that level will be playing politics with numbers, because in economics, politics is out of it. So what do you think they are seeing that is giving them that optimism to say that they can taper it to maybe the 20s, 21 as they suggest, given their projection, and then the IMF has also talked about something slightly above that. What do you think they are seeing that every other person is not seeing? Because if you listen to the president, he said this reset is necessary to put the country on a trajectory of growth. And the Monetary Policy Authority and the Fiscal Authority have been speaking confidently, despite the fact that the numbers are not as, are not looking as good as we want to see it. So what are they seeing that we're not seeing?
Well, let me give them the benefit of the doubt. Let me just try to be soft a little bit. One conduit through which maybe prices would fall a little bit precipitously is through the foreign exchange angle. So because Nigeria is import dependent, prices also increase significantly when we merge the parallel market and the official market. And so the Naira depreciated very, very rapidly, and that caused import prices to rise. So if by some luck or by some magic or whatever they do, we see the Naira begin to appreciate, such as it did maybe a few weeks ago when people were very excited, myself included, that, oh, finally, the Naira is going to break the 1,000 level, 1,000 mark, and exchange below 1,000. So if we saw that going in that direction, perhaps then we might see that translate into lower prices because we are an import-dependent economy. That's honestly the only way, or the most likely way, that they believe that they can quickly bring inflation down by making sure that the Naira regain its value, and recover its true value. So that's the only way. Other than that, if it's true, raising interest rates, if anything, I think it would worsen inflation. Because go and talk to manufacturers, they're going to tell you that, look, borrowing cost is going to rise, and input costs will rise, and therefore they will have no choice but to increase their prices.
Quite a lot to unpack, really. You can just break this conversation down into a textbook. But I would like to thank you so much, Professor Stephen Onyewu, Professor of Economics, Allegheny College, Pennsylvania, USA. Thank you for giving us your insights on this very important matter.
It's my pleasure. Nice talking to you all. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. We'll take a moment now and we'll turn our attention to yet another thorny issue. It concerns the politics in Rivers State. Goodness me. Stay with us.
As we're going now, we'll be going with a white paper to show record and amount this project was awarded at the cost of 6.7 billion. And I can say boldly that no kobo is remaining. We've paid the contractor completely. The purpose of this is to let the world know that if there is one problem this administration has, is debt. Most of the projects that are being commissioned, they are coming for their balance payments, and it's running in millions and billions. I've said I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk because I am part of that system. But when you keep pushing me to talk, I will say it so that they will see the nyash of the fowl. I heard somebody saying, when we came on board, we were fighting federal government. Federal government did not use any instruments in your state to frustrate you. Our scenarios are quite different. If we are fighting federal government, it's a different matter. We're talking about federal government that is giving us support, but the rat in the house that is eating the bag of garri. So you can imagine such situation. Huh? But we have already said the attack words to finish.
It's been long I heard some of those slangs from the governor whilst I was living in River State. But on a serious note, this is no longer funny what's going on in River State, which is why it's always in focus. And we talk about this as much as possible to find a pathway to a resolution as much as possible. We've been joined on the program by two gentlemen. Just as a background, the latest happening in River State is the fact that 5 commissioners in one day resigned from the cabinet of Governor Fubara of River State. This is after other commissioners have also resigned to take up either federal appointment or others. So those are the 5 commissioners from different ministries who are said to be loyal to FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. So that is going to be the crux of our conversation. We've been joined in the program by former Commissioner for Employment Generation and Economic Empowerment in River State. He's also a former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization in the last election, Dr. Lelono Nwibo Basa. Thank you so much for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
We also have Doye Federikumo. He's a legal practitioner and lecturer of Faculty of Law, Niger Delta University, Amasoma in Bayelsa State. Thank you for coming on the program as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Federikumo, I'll come to you first, but this question is to both of you. Apparently, with what we are seeing now, the battle line has been drawn. What are we going to see play out going forward?
Well, what is actually important is whether these battle lines are legal battle lines, whether they are lines that are actually supported by the Constitution, judicial decisions, as well as the laws of the land. Now, when there is a dispute as to questions of vacation of office by virtue of defection, 2 parties have opposing positions as to the status of certain members of the House of Assembly. The appropriate thing to do is not to resort to self-help, is to go straight to the courts. And it is for that particular reason the Constitution deliberately confers jurisdiction on the Federal High Court under Section 272, subsection 3, that they have the power to determine questions whether certain persons who have actually defected are no longer members of that assembly. It is not a question of where you belong. And that is why Section 6, subsection 6, paragraph B of the Constitution talks about judicial powers. When there is a dispute, you will refer the matter. And then you sheath your swords and allow the courts to deal with it conclusively. Now, you would notice that Section 272, subsection 3 of the Constitution has been interpreted severally by the courts. That it's only the Federal High Court, not the River State High Court, that has the exclusive responsibility of making pronouncement on that issue. So if you're of the view in the very first place that, okay, that certain persons have actually defected and they ought not to be members of the assembly, it is an affront to the law to set up a legislation of a few persons and begin to operate with it. Your duty is to go to the court, because no man should be a judge in his own court, in his own cause. This is basically the only way out of this particular crisis. There is a point that we need to also understand. You see, under Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution, there is a minimum requirement for any legislation. Minimum requirements. That is to say, the quorum for any legislature to function is stipulated for the House of Assembly. It says it is 1/3 of all the members of the House of Assembly. Now, all the members of the House of Assembly, that particular phrase has been judicially determined in the case of Dapialong against Darie, where the Supreme Court says it is with reference to the assigned membership in River State 32. So you have a case where 3 persons are now making laws purportedly for River State in defiance of the constitutional quorum, in defiance of judicial decisions, and in the process exposing themselves to the crimes of false assumption of office. How do you contemplate a situation where a man who has submitted himself to a process, submitted commissioners to a process, even if it's of the view, at the end of the day, that particular agreement he signed was not constitutional? Self-help was not the way out. The proper thing to have been done would have been to refer the matter to the courts. Besides, if there is a vacation of office in the first place, who is to complain? The person whose office seats have been taken and given to a different political party, the PDP. I have not heard of any situation that they are in court. So why would anybody complain and continue to use those issues as a basis for confusion in the system? My thinking at the end of the day is that the resort to self-help by both aspects will not solve anything. Let the forward wing of the assembly go and meet Abenule's wing in the Federal High Court and determine that particular question.
All right,
and that is why you notice that.
My apologies.
That is why you notice. Can you hear me? That is why you notice that even the Electoral Commission has refused to come into the matter, because for as long as elections have not been conducted to fill those offices, you can't even say rightly that the defectees have lost their seats. It is not in your place. It is in the place of a different arm of government. All parties go back to court.
Let's take it to Dr. Lelonu. I'm sure you have a response to this. You were a commissioner, and of course, this gale of resignation, I think 8 in number so far, if we count those that took up federal appointments. I would like your quick response.
Well, thank you very much. The resignation of the 5 commissioners yesterday and those that have resigned before didn't come to us as Rivers people as a surprise. Rather, it bothers us that human beings who at their level has been seen as mature and should be able to take decisions by themselves, we allow themselves to be used by a particular individual who dictates when they are appointed into the cabinet of Rivers State, dictates when they should resign, dictates when they should be reappointed, and dictates when they should resign. You could see that these people were actually planted in the cabinet of the governor to sabotage his government. So leaving yesterday in their droves does not in any way affect the credibility of the government of Rivers State. It has only painted them and brought them to light that these actually are people who take decisions because someone is in control of them. So it eventually means that they belong to a personality cult where one man, the former governor who is now the FCT minister, dictates what they do, tell them when to eat, when to take their bath, and when to be loyal to their own state. It is unfortunate that most of these men are people who have worked in various capacities and should understand that loyalty to the state is number one to ensure that dividends of democracy is delivered to the people. But unfortunately, you could see what we are seeing in Rivers State. So they don't have any good reason for resignation. That means they also didn't come into the government with any vision to add anything to governance in Rivers State. So they are going out of government does not in any way affect Rivers State. Rather, they were constituting a cog in the wheel of progress. And having gone out now, it is expected that the governor will settle down, bring in people who will advance the cause of Rivers State and advance the cause of governance in Rivers State.
Well, but some would say that, more importantly, that their resignations do not come as a surprise, particularly when you consider that the governor had announced his decision to probe the former administration. So, it's a reaction to what has been done before. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if the governor announced that he was going to probe the former administration, it is something that is expected to be a very regular part of governance. Even in your private business, year after year, you audit your business, you look at how the business has gone, where you have done well and where you've not done properly. And so the decision of the governor of Rivers State, Similaye Fubara, to probe the affairs of governance in Rivers State in the past years is a welcome development and should be welcomed by every patriotic citizen of Rivers State, especially those who were deemed to be members of his cabinet from when this administration started till almost 1 year now. And so, if for any reason they resign because of that announcement, it simply means that they also have skeleton in their cupboard that they are running away from. But let me say this clearly. I have said it and I want to maintain that they are leaving the cabinet because as commissioners in the cabinet and in their various ministries, they know what has gone on. They know what their former boss, who they are responding to, has done. And so they are afraid of testifying against him when the panel will eventually invite them to appear before the panel as a cabinet member. So you can see that these are people who have kept Rivers State in darkness perpetually for the past 8 years. And the young man is on the saddle of leadership, trying to turn things around, bring Rivers State back to its front row as a leading state economically and politically in Rivers State. And people are uncomfortable. Yes, you can now see those that we can really classify as enemies of the state.
Let me go to Mr. Fidel Kumar and just bring this into the mix as well. For those who are watching and those who are political historians as well, they'll tell you that it's really tough to fight a sitting governor, perhaps because of the powers that come with that office. But that on the one hand. On the other hand is the fact that it looks like the governor is gaining the upper hand again when you rely on the powers which he has as a governor, as executive, which he is. So would you be suggesting to the lawmakers to maybe count their losses? Because some have said some of the moves they've even made seems to have put them at a disadvantage. Count their losses and move on from here. And he has said that for the good of the state, be loyal to the state and the rest, and allow this probe to go on. The current governor was a part of the former administration anyway, so if there's any sort of indictment, maybe he might also be caught in the web. What's your thinking regarding that?
The first point is the proposition that the governor is actually having the upper hand. As far as I'm concerned, is either here or there. It is totally irrelevant to issues of law. First and foremost, the governor is a product of the Constitution. You have to understand that under Section 5 of the Constitution, his duty is to do two things. His duties are to execute provisions of the Constitution as he has been mandated to do, and also to carry out laws that are passed by the House of Assembly. In other words, executive functions do not operate in a vacuum. they must be with reference to law. That's why you see there has to be law, section 4, there has to be the executive, section 5, and then the judiciary, section 6. So the governor doesn't actually have any power not vested in him by law. Let us be very clear about this. That is the reason why it is important in the light of all of this, because these questions can only be resolved by the third arm of government, vested with the responsibility of determining questions when there is a dispute between people. Let me tell you point blank, Governor Simeon Efobora does not actually have a legislature. The Constitution does not contemplate 3 people sitting for an entire 32 legislature. Go and check section 96 subsection 1. So at the very end of the day, the question arises, you can't actually have valid commissioners in the absence of a proper legislature. In the case of Darie against Dakwalong against Darie, that was a situation where you notice that certain members of the assembly defected to the Action Congress of Democrats. 14 out of 24. 8 persons embarked on the process of impeachment of the president, of the governor. Supreme Court said you couldn't have actually done that. Supreme Court went on, nullified it, and said if there was indeed a defection, they ought to have conducted election to fill up all those offices before you can transact any lawful business. Do you imagine a situation where in a state where you have 32 constituencies, 3 persons have made themselves the legislature of that particular body? Why don't you ask them what is the legal basis for that?
Dr. Fidel Kuma, let me come to you. Let me stay with you on this particular one, because if it depends on who you are listening to. Some people are of the view that both the governor's side and the pro-Wike side are playing around illegality. What does that mean? You are saying that the House, according to the law, is supposed to have 24 members minimum and 40 in the House of Assembly. But in the case of Rivers, is actually 32. 2 are no longer there. 1 died, 1 resigned. So we have 30 members, and some are pro-Wike, some are pro-Fubara in this particular situation. And so you're saying the 3 persons led by Okojombo is not recognized by the law in your own interpretation. But others are also saying that the House led by Martin Ameule, for the fact that they resigned, according to Section 109, subsection 1G, there's no premise of division in the PDP that should make them still members. So there's no House of Assembly as far as they are concerned from the Ameule end. So what is, hold on, just so what is left?
You got my point.
Just hold on. Just
I'm
hold on,
not sure
sir.
you got my point.
No, just hold on, sir. But there's another issue in front. Maybe you respond to that. There's another issue in front, and which is...
Can I take that issue first? Can I take that issue first, if you don't mind, please?
Okay.
The point is this. If you have listened very carefully to what I'm saying, I have not actually justified in defection. I'm saying to the extent that that issue is before the appropriate court, they should go there and fight it.
Okay.
Now, look at Section 96. That is the point. You see, self-help will not solve this problem. Self-help will not solve this problem. The reason why you have the judiciary is that they are to resolve issues of this nature. Let me read something to you. Section 96, subsection 1 provides, of the Constitution as amended, the quorum of a House of Assembly shall be 1/3 of all the members of the House. That phrase, all the members of the House, has been given judicial interpretation in Dapialong against Darie, and the apex court of the land, following a prior decision of Inakajo against Adeleke, said what this phrase means is the assigned membership of the House. In this case, 32. 32. So 1/3 of 32 will be say 10. You actually have, for those who actually say the others actually have defected. But interestingly, that decision says if they have defected, then you have a duty to ensure that you get their seats declared vacant and a fresh election conducted before you can function.
All right.
My point is this. On the Fubara side, they don't actually have a legislature. to the extent that the other people have an order of injunction sustaining their office, then they can continue to operate. Your duty is to go to the court they are and fight them.
All right.
That is the point I am making.
All right. Let me take to Dr. Lelono on this particular one. Since so let him have an input on this. Maybe you have to respond to some of the things he said. In addition to the fact that local government councils chairmen are supposed to leave office next month, and there's an amendment to that effect that says that the House of Assembly can extend. And now the governor has had his own pro House of Assembly. What do you see happening in responding to what Dr. Federikuma has said, in addition to what I've just added to your question?
Well, clearly, the legal practitioner having spoken, I expected him to go look at the primordial issues, especially as the crisis in the assembly started. It is clear by law that there wasn't any crisis or division in the People's Democratic Party that would have warranted or necessitated the brazen action of those legislators who jumped ship from a party that sponsored them to parliament. And having done that, they have a clear understanding of the law that they vacated their seat, and their seat consequentially was declared vacant by the Right Honorable Edison Ehie-led faction of the Assembly. And that has been upheld by law. And there are also plethora of cases to decide eventually where the law stands in case of this defection and the leadership of the Assembly. And so that is no longer a subject of discussion, because as it stands today, no group of individuals can constitute themselves as an obstacle to governance and delivery of the dividends of democracy to Rivers people. And so it is clear that they have to follow the processes of court and determine whether they are still or not members of the House of Assembly, because the law is clear on their defection, which of course was not based on reasons in law for them to do so. Again, looking at such a House of Assembly that claims to be working for Rivers people and every day comes up with amendments and the laws that seems to stifle governance in Rivers State, like you rightly pointed out, where in our constitution has the House of Assembly right to elongate the tenure of local government chairmen who were already sworn in for a 3-year term, and just 2 months to the end of their tenure, they come to tell you that, look, we have amended the law that they will not hand over on the 18th of June. That is laughable. It tells you the extent of legislative rascality that has come upon these outdone lawmakers. Because, again, I reinstate that these people are only acting the script of a man who intended to capture wholly the soul of Rivers State, his political machinery and his economic structure as a personal asset to his own personal pocket. And yet the governor came and said, look, this is not necessary. You cannot govern the state for 8 years and expect the man you supported to be governor to be at your whims and caprices, to koto in your poo-poo and answer to your cough and your sneezing. That is the crux of the matter. People need to look at what the problem is, because until we know what the problem is, we cannot proffer any solution to this crisis in Rivers State. The problem is someone wants to capture the soul of Rivers State. When there is a governor who is leading the state and governing the state, a governor who has won his election and has been affirmed by all the courts of the land, and a single individual said, I put him. Is he the one that casted the vote of 5 million Rivers people that came out to vote? So where is this, the phrase I put come from? So it is about a man who is restless, who is relentless, who is suffering from out of office syndrome,
and cannot realize that he is no longer governor of Rivers State. Borrowing from the words of Senator Lee Maiba, who said it in a forum yesterday, governors need to be debriefed. Former governors need to be debriefed once they leave office so they can understand that they are no longer governors. These are the things that democratic institutions in Nigeria should begin to put in place. You can look at other states where governors are now ministers, former governors are now appointed ministers. Are there crises in other states? Atiku Bagudu is a minister in the federal cabinet. Is there a problem in his state? There are other we have other people that were former governors that are ministers. Today people come out and say we are loyal to the FCT minister. The FCT minister, your loyalty should take them to Abuja. You don't become loyal to the FCT minister.
Strong was there. Strong was there.
The FCT minister here to do project in Rivers State. These are the issues.
Strong was there.
If we don't look at the issues, we'll keep dancing around these things.
Yeah, and we hope for a resolution soon. Let me come to you now, Mr. Federer-Kumar. You have said that, it would not help both parties if they resorted to self-help, but it would seem like in all cases, the rule of law is being jettisoned. I'd like you to look at the legality of the whole the whole gamut of issues in Rivers State against the backdrop of what constitutional lawyers are saying that it's the intervention of the president by declaring a state of emergency that would, provide an enduring solution to all of this. But look at that against a backdrop of the ruling by a federal high court in Abuja on some of these suits initiated by parties in the Rivers State imbroglio. Justice James Omotosho had ruled at that time that the governor was not entitled to invite the National Assembly to take over the Rivers State House of Assembly, and that the National Assembly also lacked the powers to do so in the instant case. How do you weigh in on this? Or will a declaration of emergency overrule this decision of this FCT High Court?
Foremost, I have read the 72-page judgment of Omotosho. We need to be clear about one point. The reason why we are here today, there is still a conflict, is because of the refusal of the governor of the state to comply with the positive orders that were made in this particular case. We need to get this expressly clear. Now, I wanted to react briefly to what my co-participant actually said concerning the fact that the argument that there are no divisions in PDP. As far as I'm concerned, that itself is totally unnecessary. That is why you should go back to court and have those issues resolved. But the more fundamental point here is that, why is that? Is it that PDP whose seats have been taken from it to APC, they are not in court asserting the fact that these people are liable to live there? Why is it a third party? But let the courts decide. Maintain the status quo. And until you do that, even a state of emergency will not even resolve this kind of situation. Besides, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We just have 30 seconds.
Besides, under Section 308 of the Constitution, a state of emergency itself will only arise when you actually have an actual breakdown of law, making it impossible for the normal conduct of business to go on. The issues here are very minor issues. The issues of defection. And they're already in court.
All right.
They should expedite the process of having these cases determined conclusively. My question to the man on the other side, Minister, is there a final judgment of a court of law declaring the seat of the 27 members vacant on account of defection? There is none.
All right, Dr. Federer-Kumar.
None whatsoever.
My apologies. We may have to button. So apparently from the text here is that maybe expeditious hearing is necessary for this, but it's also confusing sometimes when it comes to politicians, how things that are expressly written in the Constitution will now be subject to interpretation of the court. But that's what democracy and the law is all about, so we respect all of that. So everybody has to abide by the rule of the game, which is we're ruled by, or we're run by the ground norm, which is our constitution. I must thank you, Dr. Nwibu Basa, Elelonu, former Commissioner for Employment and Empowerment Generation, Rivers State, and Dr. Doye Fiderokomon, legal practitioner and lecturer, Faculty of Law, Niger Delta University, and Masoma in Bayelsa State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll switch gears now to what we call the softer side of things. This multi-talented singer joins us right here on the program. Who is she? Well, where to find out? Join us again.
And so you've seen her already. Our guest today has got swag, she's got lyrics, and she's got attitude. Let's welcome MostPrecious Adedoyin to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. Hi, Precious.
Hi.
So which one should I stick with? Precious or MostPrecious?
I prefer to be called MostPrecious.
MostPrecious. Well, amazing. Beautiful. We usually like to start from, the beginning of your journey, but I'm curious, particularly because of your dexterity that you deploy to what you do, your singing. We call you a dynamic singer. Your ability to switch, from traditional to hip hop to, the different genres of music. How do you acquire that? I'm in a hurry to, get into the mix already.
Okay, so I feel like my passion drives me to actually want to learn more, even since I was a child. So basically, as I grew up, I have been trying to know different genre of music. So right now that I'm a live band artist, it's made it more easy for me to just cope with any kind of music. Yeah.
So how are you able to store up, all of those songs on the inside and be able to, deliver during your live performances?
Well, it's just, it's inbuilt. I feel it's inbuilt. Because normally, when you sing songs, you have to get to like the song, know them, be into the song before you can just deliver it perfectly. So it's inbuilt. I don't have anything to...
It comes naturally. Yeah. There's nothing to you, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I like that. So it's like follow, come, as they say.
Yeah.
So this is what we're trying to do today. It's been a very long week, right? So we're trying to get people in the weekend mood already. And your music is kind of music people listen to during the weekend at parties. So this is us helping our viewers get into the weekend mood early. But let's talk about the work you do. Because a lot of people know, okay, what is the genre of the music you do? Tell us a genre. How do you describe the kind of music you do?
Okay, people call it high life, but I call it repertoire.
Repertoire.
That means you sing different kind of music genre.
Right.
You from traditional to contemporary. So just repertoire. When it's called people's song.
I like that. So we know that particular genre is usually dominated by men, right?
Okay.
You can counter me, but most of the people we see are men. So for you, holding your own, doing your thing with such dexterity, we understand that you even infuse rap, hip hop sometimes. How does it work? Because you have to go for events. Sometimes you have to stay up late doing your rehearsals. You have to travel a lot. How is it for you as a woman? Is it, again, follow, come, easy peasy, or it's challenging?
Okay, it's not really challenging. Yeah, it's not really challenging because music is something I really like to do, and if it's something you really love to do, you find it easy to do them. So traveling and the fact that I'm a lady, because he said it's actually there are so many ladies, women doing live band music, but I don't know. So I feel it's just my thing. I just feel comfortable doing music. I love to travel a lot. I love to go out. I love to be outside. So I think it's just my normal lifestyle with the kind of work I do. It just works together.
Okay, so let's take a sneak peek of the work you've done again. But I'm tempted to ask a question, but I'll come back to it. Let's just listen to MostPrecious. You have to get it right. It's not just Precious, MostPrecious doing her thing. They will come back to some more. Gone to parties, this is what we endure, and you're holding on to your money. I'm not going to bring this money out. How do people do it? That I know there's a limit to how you can spray money. You don't spray, you keep. But how do you get people to dash you money? Because you go to an event, you said, I'm not going to spend more than 5,000. You realize you spent 200,000 because someone is calling your name, calling your grandfather's name, and making you feel good. How do you do that?
Yeah, it actually takes years of experience, yeah, but when you are good at what you do, like it's just the normal thing. When you forget music, if you actually just give a clothes to a fashion designer and you don't expect much from the person, and the person says, okay, this is the amount I want to take, and you're like, okay, I want to give it a try. So, and at the end of the day, the person just like wowed you, blow your mind and all. You be like, no, you deserve more. So that's what happens when.
I'm sure it wasn't always like that you come and collect all our money by eulogizing us. But let's walk back to the moments where. Have you ever been in a situation? I'm curious to know, because I've heard comedians say that, other art forms say it as well. Have you ever been in a situation where you're performing, you're expecting a reaction, like the energy you get, and you're not getting it? What did you do in that instance? I mean, at the beginning, I'm sure now you know how to kill the stage and get your crowd walking. So
literally, I don't do music for. I entertain. I do more of entertaining. I entertain people more than I care about. Like, I care about their reaction, but I feel like when you are doing your thing and you are just. I am looking for the right way to put it. When you are doing your thing and you are just feeling your own vibe, right, you are in your own, and everybody is happy. There's no way, men looking at you, they will be in the vibe with you, they will be in that mood with you. So I've actually been in situations where I will sing and I would actually expect a turn up, but there wouldn't be. So that's where repertoire does it. You have to change, you have to think, you have to change whatever you are singing at that moment and do something else. You have to know what works for each audience. So it's just part of the experience and training.
So I'm curious to know as well. It's a funny question, but permit me to ask. We don't spray money. But like, how much have you been sprayed ever? Highest amounts. Like, you went to gather, you've gathered like, is this 10 million I'm saying?
I'll leave it Jeffrey. I'll leave it undisclosed, actually.
But how do you feel whenever you see people come to appreciate you for what you do live? And this is not like, can't collect your balance later. This is, I don't even know you, but you're killing it. How does it make you feel?
I feel great. It makes me want to do more, do better. I really, really get motivated by things like that. So it makes me want to do more.
Amazing. And I imagine that, each audience will differ. You talked about audiences, a hip-hop kind of audience will be different from, an audience of elderly people where, you would have to deploy all of your skill where juju and high life is concerned. So give us now a sense into your background. Some people think that for live band performance, you would have to have followed a lead singer and a live band performer over the years.
Definitely.
But is that how you acquired your skill, or does it run in the family or something?
Okay, so my dad was, because he's no longer into it, was a Juju gospel high life singer. So back then, I would always love to follow him to shows. He was a great performer, actually. I think I resemble him with that. So he has been the one that has actually inspired me. Then after, back then there was no hip hop like that. So I learned the juju, the traditional music from him. Then later when I got to okay, this is the route that I'm taking, I had a boss, yeah. So, but I spent years of training and all. So, but I feel it's just most about me, actually, because it's what I love to do. I don't need to be taught a lot of things. Once I have interest in it, I do my research, I discover things, I get ideas personally on my own. So that's just it.
So Jeffrey, Coyote and I are backup singers. Most of the time we back up, professionals like you. So if we want to become dexterous like you as a repertoire singer, how long would it take for us to, acquire the skill?
I always say something to my BGVs, background vocalists. I tell them it's about passion. If I want to train you and you don't want to be trained, there's nothing I want to do about it. So some people, you can train them 2 years, 3 years, they don't know anything. And some people, 3 months, they are done. Depends on their own passion, what drives them, you get. So I don't know, because personally, I think I did a year or two. So, and I started mine.
So let me tell you this, just be upfront with you. We didn't hold any money. Because we know that there's a tendency for you to start
I really
singing.
don't think for the money.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
So you don't like money?
No, there's nobody that doesn't like money. But, this thing is about, okay, I do entertainment. I entertain people.
True.
So it's more of I'm entertaining myself as much as I'm entertaining.
We also don't plan to spend the money. We just went there with transport money and then we realized so we didn't hold money because we're going to get you to sing in the context. Just do some simulation. But I'd like to speak to this. Is it a debate really? Because you do live music.
Okay.
Live music is, it's your vocals. It's not like you recording and there's a little auto tune. They adjust you go off here and they help you to adjust it to the right, the right note, and then they make your vocals sound good before it's packaged. But you do live music, so it's real time. If you go off, people notice real time, and that can affect your performance. So, do you sometimes think, or when you hear people perform and they lip sync to their track too, when the DJ is playing their song and they just lip sync into it, and you have to do it live, do you feel like, all you this recording artists, you're not doing as much work as we do, and you think you don't get as much accolades and appreciation as you ought to get because you're doing it live? There, no breaks. You don't have to break and say, okay, I'll take this part now and they'll take this part later. You're doing everything live. Do you feel like you don't get as much appreciation?
Okay, so as a live band artist, the originality in repertoire is very minimum. So we can't compare ourselves to the original artists, like hip-hop artists and all. They use DJs, they are fine with it. Even if they make mistakes, it's not obvious. So, yeah, we are not getting enough accolades because it takes a lot of work to rehearse, score people's songs and all. But I still feel like originality is key. And myself, I am intending to do a lot of things to change the live band thing. You have to be original. Yeah, so I can't keep on doing people's song and expect them to hail me enough as the original singer. So yeah, it's part of my own. Yeah,
we're here for that. So you have to give us something.
You're composing your own personal songs.
Yes, it's just
a work in progress.
Yeah.
So let's 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Give us a feel of.
Just give us a quick combo of 30
We don't
seconds.
have money. Thankfully.
We don't have money to spend.
And we don't want the EFCC to come after us.
But you guys can
So that's your camera.
But we'll join you with this.
Okay. Would you like, what genre of music would you like?
Just wow us.
Just anyone that comes.
Whatever.
Anyone that makes somebody
right
dance.
On the morning brief. What do you feel like singing?
Do you know it?
Yeah.
Oh, tell by me, Oba mi, Olore. Tell by me, Oba. You sing so well. Olore.
So you have a new BGB earlier on. Wow. Beautiful.
Amazing. So we don't want to get lost in the beauty and captivating power of your voice this morning. We'll continue after this time out. So get ready for your backup vocalist.
But I'll block my app, so I won't do transfer.
All right. Most Precious Adedoyi, a fantastic singer with skill and style. Although it appears she's a bit shy, but we'll take out that shyness from her. And we want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
And this is where we drop the anchor on the morning brief right here on Channels Television. We'll be back again tomorrow with our fantastic weekend edition. So don't forget to join us. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
And Sunrise Daily picks up that anchor to take it all the way to 11. I'm Jeffrey Zama. Bye-bye.
In fact, you see the anchors on Sunrise Daily. I'm Kyle Have a great day.